This meeting is being recorded.
I'm really excited, especially I haven't interviewed them yet, but I'm really excited because I think the communication is going to go communication issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for being a couple of minutes late. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I am very happy to host this particular fireside chat. And for those of you that don't know me, I am Mauricio Vera. I'm the Assistant National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement. So I want to welcome and thank you for joining us for today's fireside chat. Today's webinar was developed to help veteran-owned small businesses accelerate growth in the federal marketplace. And that is what VIP is all about, accelerating the success of veteran-owned small business government contractors. We are currently accepting applications for all 5 VIP training programs. And we're having a little bit of a problem with slides today, and I think our guest is going to talk about that. So we will get those slides to you after the session today. We're going to email those to you. And it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Ms. Kimberly Ball. She serves as the Director of the U.S. Agency for International Development's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. USAID's OSDBU coordinates the small business program and is the initial point of contact at USAID for all categories of U.S. small businesses. OSDBU also oversees USAID's efforts to increase the participation of minority-serving institutions of higher education in USAID-sponsored programs and activities. We want today's event to be interactive, so we do ask you to think of questions, and you can send them as Kimberly is speaking. I'm told she's okay with answering some questions while you're presenting. Is that right, Kimberly?
That's right.
That is right. Good. But after her presentation, we're going to open the floor to Q&A. We encourage everyone to be on camera if you're able to. And with that, it gives me great pleasure to turn today's webinar over to Ms. Kimberly Ball. Well, Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mauricio. I am really glad to be here. What Mauricio didn't tell you, and I will, is that yes, I'm the deputy there you go. I'm the director of the OSDBU office, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization at USAID. And for a number of years, more than a decade, I worked for this fine gentleman when he was the director. So we are back together again. I do have to apologize. I am not quite sure what's happening with my slides. I spent quite a bit of time working on them, honestly, so I'm a little bummed, but we can't seem to pull them up in this venue. And so we're going to have to just talk and have a conversation. And this will be a little bit of a quiz for me to see if I can actually talk through everything I want you to know about USAID and small business without the benefit of my slides. But with that, I'm going to give you guys my best effort, and we're going to go ahead and give it a try. So if we were in person, one of the first things I would ask you to do is to raise your hands when I asked who is currently working with USAID. We don't have the benefit of doing that sort of in this environment. So I asked that a couple of poll questions be created for you all to respond to, just to give me a little bit of a sense of who I'm talking to. So Aaron, if you could go ahead and release the first poll question. There we go. And we'll just take a few minutes while I do some talking for you guys to answer that question. So one of the first things I want to know is whether or not you've actually worked with USAID. And if you have, is that as a prime contractor or a subcontractor? So while you guys are, look, we've got 2 of 2. I love this. I do love this instant feedback on the things that I'm saying. I'm a fan of that. So thank you for that. Okay, so the people who are here currently, it looks like are in the subcontracting arena. Okay, awesome. All right. Good, that's really, really helpful to know. I hope as we continue through the presentation, maybe some of you guys will put in the chat box a little bit about your experience working with USAID. If you are a prime, I definitely would like to know what contract you were under, where you worked, etc. If you were a sub, I'd still like to know that same information. So just to give me a sense again of who I'm talking to and to get a bit of an understanding about how much you know about the agency. So we'll begin with just a a recognition of who I am and what my office does. So as I'm sure you guys know, if you're in federal procurement, there's an OSDBU office in most every federal agency. And it's our job to review the requirements that our agencies are coming out with, to make sure that small businesses are given an equitable opportunity to participate. We also conduct small business training, both for you all, but also for our acquisition and assistance staff, to make sure that they understand the requirements of the program and when they're required to use it and when it benefits them to use it. And then, of course, we do things like this. We come and we talk to folks like you about the agency with the hope of making sure that you want to come and work with us under our partnership. So, you know what? I'm sorry. Before we go any further, Aaron, can we stop and share our video? I want you guys to know a little bit about USAID, so we're going to start there.
All history shows that the effort to win progress within freedom represents the most determined and steadfast aspirations of man.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that was our 60th anniversary video. So we turned 60 just a couple of months ago. And it gave you just a little bit of a taste of some of the things that the agency does around the world. So that's what we're going to talk about, the work that the agency does and how you might be a part of it. So that's my agenda for today. Okay, in terms of our agency's mission, we promote and demonstrate democratic values abroad and advance a free, peaceful, and prosperous world. And we do that by working in a number of different areas, right? So we work in water and sanitation. We deliver humanitarian assistance, which I'm sure if you know much about USAID, that's probably what you hear the most about, our food program. But we also do agriculture. We do food security, which is a little bit different than actually just providing food. It is making sure that food is available in times of drought and things like that. The things that we do to make sure that countries can keep growing the agricultural products they need directly, as opposed to us, shipping food the way that we historically have done. Global health, which includes things like our recent COVID response, democracy, human rights, and governance, nutrition, innovative technology, gender equality and women's empowerment. We focus a lot on education for women and girls, economic and trade development, working in crisis and conflict, education, and energy, and climate change. We do a lot of work in climate change as well. So those are the areas that we work in. For those just joining, I hear a couple of pings. I have to admit, I'm looking at my slides rather than you all. I hear a couple of pings. We had some technical difficulties, so you'll get to see me for the entire time and not necessarily any slides, but you will get them in an email from VIP after the session. So we work in over 100 countries around the world, and we have offices here in Washington as well. So we are in terms of our domestic footprint, we are only here in Washington, but we are in a lot of other places where we are working to reflect American core values and our commitment to doing the right thing. And frankly, also making friends abroad, which makes a difference when we are in troubled times. We have about 4,000 organizations that we partner with around the world. That includes for-profit businesses such as you all, both large and small. We partner with non-governmental organizations or NGOs, charitable organizations, colleges and universities, diaspora groups, faith-based organizations, other governments, both the host country governments that we're dealing with in country, but also the other governments, the other countries that have aid programs as well. So those are some of the folks that we deal with. So we have a not a huge footprint, but we work with a lot of people around the world to get things done. And we do this in two different ways. We do both acquisition and assistance. Acquisitions, all of our acquisitions are going to be on sam.gov, just like with any other federal agency, and all of our assistance is going to be on grants.gov. I always tell small businesses who are new to consider doing both. I know that assistance doesn't quite have the same business model that that doing contracts does, but it does get you experience with the agency. It is sometimes easier to get those assistance awards, and frankly, it keeps the lights on, right? It builds your experience, it builds your reputation, and it pays your people, right? So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm moving a little quickly because we started late, and I want to make sure I leave a lot of time for questions. But I wanted to give you some tips today for how to get to know USAID. So I said we have headquarters in Washington, and we have missions in 80 countries around the world, at least. It fluctuates a little bit. Every once in a while, a country graduates and we leave. Sometimes people actually ask us to leave. So different things happen, but that number is fairly consistent around 80. If you have my slides, what you'd be looking at is a big org chart of what we actually look like. But we have a number of different operating units that are going to handle, very sort of headquarters related things, just like everybody else. We have a chief information officer, so we buy IT related things. We have a management division. We hire people to work in the agency, just like many federal agencies. We don't have enough government workers, so we have contracts to bring in other staff to help us meet our needs. So we have those kind of headquarters things. But then we also have the operating units. We call them bureaus and independent offices that manage the function of the agency. So some of those are going to be very specifically focused on problems that are going to be worldwide, like global health, and the others are going to be more regionally focused. So they're dealing with a particular part of the world, like the Africa Bureau. And when you're talking about something like, and clearly those two groups collaborate, but also when you're looking at our regional bureaus, like Africa, like Latin America and the Caribbean, then they are also our conduit from Washington to deal with the missions. This is important to be aware of for a couple of reasons. One is that we have contracting officers in both those places. So if you want to work in Washington, then you're dealing with our contracting officers here in Washington. But those contracting officers also do IDIQ contracts. I'm sure you are aware of them after your wonderful experience with VIP. Then those things are then used in the field. The field does have its own contracting officers as well. Right, so we're not all in the same place. Even though we're doing similar jobs, we're doing them in different places. And one of the things that's important for you all to know is where you want to work with us, right? Are you interested in just our basic sort of headquarters functions? Or are you interested in the work that we do overseas? So actually the development work of the agency. So one of the tips and one of the tools you can use to get to know us a little bit better is simply our website. We have a wealth of information there, including things like dollars to results. When you go to our website, you'll see something that says data, and it has things like what are the top 10 countries where USAID spends our money? What are the top 10 sectors where we spend that money? Obviously, again, one of them is going to be health. Another one's going to be agriculture. We also do things around water and sanitation. So that is valuable information that you can find simply by going to our website. Also there is something called workwithusaid.org. I want to emphasize that that's .org and not .gov. Okay. If you go to .gov, you're going to end up with a sign that says this website isn't working. We're on .org, but it's an interesting resource for new, current, and future partners. It focuses both on the assistance side and the acquisition side. It is for our domestic partners and our local partners. And when I say local, I mean those in country. And it is for our small and large organizations that we partner with. On that website, you'll find a wealth of information about what we do, but also how to work with us, right? There's even there's a little quiz or survey that you complete that will tell you whether or not, in our opinion, you would be ready to work with the agency. And by that, I mean whether or not your organization is mature enough to work with the agency. So I recognize that probably in this group, we have folks who have been in business for varying periods of time. So that's going to be more or less helpful depending on what your personal situation is. But I would highly recommend that people take a look at it anyway, because I do think it has valuable information. It also has a partner database, right? So please, if you don't use the site for anything else, go in there and register. It's an opportunity to share your information with the agency. It's also the point where you can go to in our agency and find out what kind of events we have coming up. Now, the OSDBU office obviously is a small business advocate, does our own events, but there are other events that are done by Work With at USAID. It's managed by our industry liaison, so they're dealing with everybody, for-profit, nonprofit, universities, small, large, everybody. So they have events that sort of reflect that, but it's a great opportunity for you to participate. Last week, or maybe the week before, they hosted an event that was a reverse industry day, where businesses were given an opportunity to both talk about what they do and where they do it, but also about some of the issues and concerns, some of the barriers to entry, some of the problems that they experience working with us. So that was a great opportunity to sort of hear from the small business and large business community directly about how challenging it is to work with USAID or how to be successful working with USAID. Many of these events are recorded and then placed on the website. So again, I encourage you to go. The other things that I think you need to think about are be willing to subcontract. And based on the poll that we have this morning or this afternoon, I think that many of you are, so that's great. I want to share with you, though, that USAID maintains a list of its IDIQ contracts and the IDIQ holders, as well as the BPA holders on our website. You will get a link to that site in the slides when you receive them. So you don't have to worry about navigating the site to find this information. It's readily available, and it helps you figure out who's already working with us. Okay. One of the other things I would encourage you to do is respond to our request for information. USAID does that a lot. And frankly, in some cases, we use it in lieu of a sources sought notice, but it does help us to sort of frame our requirements and find out who's out there. So I would very much encourage you, if you see something that you're interested in, go ahead and respond. It does help us to know that as a small business, and particularly as a veteran-owned small business, that you're out there and interested in working with the agency. Another way that you can get to know us is by looking at our country development cooperation strategy. Now, this is for folks who want to work overseas. It's a 5-year strategy at the country level that reflects USAID's collaboration with other agencies. So it's a holistic look at what is happening in a country by the US government in a particular period of time. So again, repeating that we have 80 missions, they're done on a cycle, right? So they're not all at the same point, but it's an interesting way to be able to look at what's happening in a country and to decide if, a couple of things, if we're buying what you're selling. So, we may buy certain things, but we don't always buy them everywhere that we work, right? Or consistently across the board. So looking at this kind of thing, it's a much more long-term view than looking at our business forecast, but it will help you get a really good sense for what we're doing and when. And I think I may have glossed over the business forecast a little bit, but there's a reason for that, and I'll circle back around to it. So other tips for getting to know us, follow us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. The video that you saw a few minutes ago is on YouTube, right? So we put information out. USAID is really trying to join the social media time so that we are out in front so that you can see what we're doing, okay? And again, join us. We host events. We're happy to meet and see people. Okay, so another point that I wanted to make is it's important to know people who already know us, right? USAID has a number of organizations that are comprised of our implementing partners. Now, by no means am I saying that you have to join these organizations to work with USAID. You do not. Membership is definitely not required. But I think when you're trying to get to know a person or a place or an organization, then it's helpful to talk to other people who are already engaged in business there. So again, these are in the slide, so you'll get the website links so that you're able to respond. So that you're able to take a look at them and figure out whether or not it's something that might be important for you. But it is SBAI. It is SBIC, it is Professional Services Council, and it is SID Washington, Society for International Development. So these are all international development focused, and I think that they're helpful organizations. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Mauricio is a member of at least one, if not two of those, and certainly familiar with all of them from his days as the OSDBU director. Okay. So the next thing we want to talk about is, okay, our business forecast. So I wanted to share a couple of things about the business forecast. And for that reason, I didn't want to necessarily make it a part of the list. But if I can humble brag a little bit, USAID has one of the best business forecasts in the government, right? We keep it updated on a fairly regular basis. It is searchable, both in terms of, whether something is Washington or the field, whether it's what particular bureau it is. Again, as I said, our bureaus are surrounded around things like global health, Africa Bureau, Latin American and the Caribbean, Europe and Eurasia. They're divided out that way. And again, when you see the slides, you'll see the entire list. So apologies for not walking all the way through it, but if someone has a question about that, happy to answer it. In any event, it's a searchable document. And I wanted to foot stomp it here because we also host a quarterly webinar where you get the opportunity to ask questions about the things that are on the forecast. Now, let me be clear, you can always ask questions, right? And there's an email that's associated with the business forecast that you can go directly to. But in this case, we have a webinar that I'll participate in. It's hosted by our Office of Acquisition and Assistance, so our contracting folks. They'll participate, I'll participate, and we will go through not all of the questions. At this point, we highlight what are some of the recurring questions and address those on the call. Back in the old days when we first started, we used to address every single question, but now we've gotten so many that that's no longer possible. But what I will tell you is that they put up a transcript, and they also record the call so that you can go back and every single question will be addressed. So that event is on Tuesday, June 7th, and it's at 2 o'clock. So there is information for you to register that's, again, attached to the PowerPoint, so you'll be able to join us. And I would encourage you to do that. It's a great way to find out more about the agency and to find out what's happening and, frankly, get some answers if there are things out there that you have questions about. So I took a look at our business forecast just yesterday because I'd like to be able to share what is on that business forecast. And so 3 of the things that I saw that were out there that I thought might be interesting for this group is there's an energy IDIQ that's out. Now it is a worldwide IDIQ and USAID uses it to implement a variety of energy sector programs with broad categories of implementing partners. There's a small business reserve. And this is a 3rd iteration of this vehicle. So we've been using it for a number of years, and we had a number of small businesses participate in it. The vehicle itself is $1 to $1.5 billion roughly, but again, there is a small business reserve. The other thing that we typically like to do is have a threshold under which the awards have to go to small business first. So this is a wonderful opportunity for anybody who works in the energy sector. As I said, I pulled it from the business forecast, but it has not yet been posted as a requirement, so it is still forthcoming. So I would imagine that there is still time to look around and see who's out there doing this work and establish a team. I would not wait too long, though, if it's something you're interested in. These things move quickly. Another thing that was on the business forecast was the Nigeria mission's financial management capacity. This is something to support the mission's approach to developing the local capacity of new and underutilized implementing partners. So this one is pretty important because it sort of focuses on the way that the agency is going. Right now, we're looking at working a lot more with local in-country organizations. And that's been a little bit of a challenge for us because, when we're talking about subawards, sometimes our large partners want to use the work that they traditionally would have subbed to small business and given it to local organizations. So it can be a little bit of an issue for us that we're still trying to work out. But what I will say to you is if we can get our small businesses in that place to work with the local organizations instead, as you all are the ones who are a little bit more knowledgeable about having a smaller organization begin to work for the government and all that that entails, I think that's a win-win for everybody. One of the other vehicles that I saw there, and one that I think you see a lot in terms of small business for USAID, is a contract that will recruit, hire, and maintain contracted technical advisory, professional, administrative staff, et cetera. So one of the things that I said was we buy is people, and this is a vehicle to buy people. It is with our gender office, so it is particularly about advancing gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, and that's a contract that's in the $25 to $50 million range. In terms of what small businesses are doing right now, they are doing all of the work that I just mentioned. This morning, I was saying to Mauricio before most of you joined the call. Earlier, I was saying to Mauricio that this morning I was on a phone call with our mission staff in Thailand, where we had capabilities presentations for small businesses that are doing monitoring, evaluation, and learning. It's a huge part of the bread and butter in the agency for small businesses, and USAID is required to monitor its various programs, right? We want to look at what we're doing right at the midpoint, but also at the ends for lesson learned, but also to help us pivot, right? Is what we're doing very terribly successful? Are we pursuing the right path? What have the outcomes been? So that is work that a lot of small businesses do, and we count on a lot of small businesses to do it. It's one of our largest small business programs. That IDIQ is roughly in the neighborhood of $600 million, and there are 14 small businesses that are a part of it. And it's only small business. Again, it's a total small business set aside. So, but you've done some homework. You've looked at what the agency does. You've looked at what we have available. And hopefully now you're ready to apply to an actual solicitation. So forgive me for those of you who are seasoned business owners if this is a bit pedestrian, but I want to make sure for any of our newbies that we're very clear about this. Or we want to make sure that you read the solicitation entirely and that you're clear on what is being asked. If you are not clear, make sure that you're sending your questions during the open question period, right? That's usually the first 2 weeks of any solicitation. And then follow the instructions to the letter, right? We don't want to be dismissed for anything minor. We want to make sure that we're giving a good impression, and we want a strong proposal that demonstrates your technical expertise, your past performance, and your ability to accomplish the work. Okay, be very specific and don't let USAID make any assumptions. For people who are new to the agency, I would say that includes being able to translate your experience, right? If you're bringing some of that experience from your military career, or maybe you've worked with DoD as a veteran-owned small business, sometimes the language doesn't always translate. So I think it's important to be careful to make sure you're very clear about how your existing experience translates to the USAID market if you haven't worked with us previously. But put a strong focus on your past performance and your technical expertise. And then sometimes consider whether or not it's worth your while to partner with an organization that has USAID experience. I know a lot of government agencies think they're different. USAID is no different in thinking that, and the language we use is even sometimes different. And if you are, joining us for the first time and working overseas, then the laws are a little bit different. So you need to make sure that you have those types of bases covered. Let's see. So I want to talk to you, probably the last thing that I'm going to bring up before we head over to your Q&A, to any of your questions, and I hope you have some. I will be frankly disappointed if you don't, but it's just to talk to you a little bit about how we're doing with our small business achievement. So last year, there were $2.4 billion in eligible small business dollars, right? So in contracts that we awarded worldwide. Small businesses received 811 million of that. Our small disadvantaged business dollars, we did okay. That was 402 million. Women-owned small business, 305 million. Historically underutilized business zones, 33 million. And for the last category that we negotiate with the U.S. Small Business Administration, service disabled veteran-owned small business dollars, 33 million. So 33 million out of 2.4 billion went to service disabled vets. Now, if you count just veteran-owned businesses, that number goes up significantly. But again, we're not really graded on that. We're graded on the service disabled vet. So if you're chatting with me in the box and you're a service disabled vet, please let me know that, because that is a group that we are specifically targeting. In fact, we are targeting them sufficiently that we're going to do an event that is strictly just for veteran-owned businesses, and frankly, just for your organization, for this organization VIP. But also we have an event similar to this one with the American Legion and with the Vet Force. So we'll invite those 3 groups of veterans to participate with us in a series of one-on-one meetings. So essentially, we're going to send out registration to this community that I just described, and give you an opportunity to meet one-on-one with some of our small business specialists to talk about what you do, what we do, and how we might be able to best help you enter our market. If you've decided after having this conversation and done some homework that this is a market that's important to you. So I hope you do. We will make sure that we send that information out to you via this this organization, and I look forward to talking to you. Mauricio, I hope I didn't talk for too long.
No, you did not. Very good, Kimberly. Great presentation. Lots of really, really good information. And congratulations on your position.
Thank you.
You've done really good information. You must have had a good mentor at some point in your career.
I must have. And also really good slides that you'll see eventually.
Yeah, no, apologies again to everyone about the slides, but thank you, Kimberly. I did want to, before we go to Q&A, I just wanted to ask, because I see many of you that I know that are at least the names. I'm not many of you are on camera, but I see the names. Can I ask a polling question? How many of you out there, I know you're all VIP grads, but how many of you out there have taken VIP international class? I think we're going to launch the polling question. There you go. If you could just answer that. We wanted to get a sense. We just finished a class a couple of weeks ago, and we're scheduling one for March of next year. So if you have not taken VIP International, I highly encourage you to do that, because it's it's got just a huge amount of information about doing business overseas, and I see that 77% of you have not taken it. So I highly encourage you to do that. And one of the panels that we have contains Kimberly, or the Small Business Director from USAID and State Department and the Army. And that's just one session out of 3 days. Most of you know about the 3-day training. So highly encourage you to sign up for that. So, okay, thank you for that. Now we're going to open the floor up for Q&A. And if you have a question, please use the hand raise feature in Zoom. I assume most of you know how to do that, but just in case you don't, you click on the reactions button in your Zoom toolbar, and from there, click raise hand, and I will call on you to unmute and ask Kimberly your question. So I see first we have Sylvester Bush. Please unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, Ms. Ball. Appreciate you spending time out of your busy schedule to meet with us. How do we reach you, information if we wanted to send you? I know you say you're looking for STVOs, VOSBs, and we are, and we would love to help you meet your goal. So just how do we reach out to you? And I know we're going to go online, put our information into your system, but a lot of times they tell us to do that and we never hear anything back. So just.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I saw that question in the chat. Can we have Kimberly's email? And the answer to that is no. I'm not going to share my email. I'm not hard to find, right? Anybody who's doing a little bit of homework will find me. But here's what I will say. One, that if every one of you sends me an email, then I'm going to be overwhelmed and you definitely won't ever hear from me, right? It's just going to be too much. My office does have a group email box, though, and it is osdbu1@usaid.gov. I will type that in the chat, and Mauricio has it, so he can share it as well. In fact, it's on the last page of the slide, so you'll get it anyway. But that's a mailbox that is centrally managed in my office, and what that will allow is for our admin staff to actually go through and make sure that you're forwarded to the correct person. Okay. Which is not always me, right? One of the things is that people do like to send email to the director. The director is not always the person who is the most knowledgeable about whatever your question is. I will readily admit that. Right after I tell you I've been in this job for 4 months. I think it's more effective and efficient for you to actually talk to a staff member. So we will share the email address. Please do that. If you find that you are not getting a response, then yes, then you can reach out to me. But first, we want to start you through the process.
Thank you for that, Kimberly. And if I could just add one point to that, I agree 100% with Kimberly. You as a business owner, you don't want the small business director to be constantly working with other small businesses. You want them to be, the OSDBU director's job is really to engage internally with leadership and with contracting folks to try to get them to work with small businesses. And that's the primary responsibility really, but she does have staff that is assigned to parts of the organization, so can and are really more knowledgeable about specific opportunities that may be coming up. So certainly agree with Kimberly on that. So next we have Michael Schuler. Michael, please unmute.
Hi, Mauricio. Good to see you again. And Kimberly, thank you for the presentation. We're a company that deals with handling and reselling retired computers and electronics. About 70% of our marketplace is international. We sell to a lot of dealers around the world. Would love to engage with USAID because people in other countries are always looking for cheaper alternatives for getting a viable computer. I'd like to find out how to work with your organization. Also like to find out how possibly engage with your own internal systems as you upgrade.
Okay, so if you send an email, then we will direct you to our person who deals with our CIO office, our Chief Information Officer, to see what they're in the market for. I'm going to be honest and say I don't know. I will tell you that I'm working on a brand new Dell right now myself because we just did a turnover as we all return back to work. Everyone's getting new laptops. So I'm not sure where we stand in the cycle in terms of procuring new technology, but certainly, we can answer the question, or we can ask the question. In terms of what's happening overseas, though, I'm going to be honest and say I'd be truly surprised if we were buying domestically for that. But we can answer that question too. The only reason we might be doing that where we haven't historically is because there's an issue with procuring computer equipment, et cetera, that has Chinese parts, which I think is probably really challenging to get around, but particularly in certain parts of the world. So there may be an opening there. There may not, but certainly we can ask the question.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Michael. Kenan, artist, nice to see you. Please ask your question.
Great seeing you as well, Mauricio. Thanks so much. Ms. Ball, I've got two questions. I'm going to ask the first one and then get back in the queue here to ask the second one. We are an SDVOSB in the people engagement arena. One of the things that we do is deliver a proprietary training session on, and incidentally, in light of your answer to the first question, this may not be a fair one or one that you're in position presently to answer. Given that, I quite by accident found that there is a solicitation, I think the 19th is when it was due, for critical and strategic thinking skills. Now, this is our, one of our kind of bread and butter is a proprietary system to deliver just that. I'm trying to understand if this training is something that you do at USAID, globally or in your various bureaus or what have you, or is this just a one-off and I just happen to have found something in that area where we focus? In other words, is there a pat sort of training for critical decision making and strategic thinking?
I don't know that there is, but that is, I'm frankly surprised that you found that one. But we do training in a variety of ways. So offices are certainly allowed to procure their own training. So it could be that it was a one-off, but also we have a large training program that's run out of our Human Resources Office, which at USAID is called Human Capital and Talent Management. We have a very large training contract that's run out of there as well. So if it was a standalone, if you saw it on its own, it might be just a one-off. But that doesn't mean that we don't have other people buying it or that our human resources department isn't buying it as well. So I think it's probably worth looking to see if there's anything else out there. So does that mean that you were able to make the solicitation, or did you miss it just based on when you saw it?
Yeah, I missed it just based on what, or actually no, it's due on the 3rd, and I'm not confident we'd put together a really good proposal with such little time here. So. We'll give them a call there at your Human Capital and Training Management Office and just try to get a bit smarter in that area.
Okay. Certainly, if you want to find out more about Human Capital and Talent Management, the person in my office who manages that is Charles Acock. You can reach out to him directly. Don't everybody reach out to Charles. He is our HCTM person. But
just for me.
Certainly. Yeah, just for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenan. And I can vouch for that. Charles is a superstar. So next we have, oops, I thought it was James Cropper. Did you have a question or did you lower your hand? How you doing, James?
I do actually. I lowered my hand on the assumption you were going to call on me.
Okay,
I didn't realize it would change my screen. First, thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy day, Ms. Bell. We really appreciate that. I did a quick search in USAID website and found Enterprise Cybersecurity Awareness and Training Program supporting CMS. And I was curious, as an SDVOSB, do we reach out to that organization specifically, or should we go through an SDVOSB specialist?
If there's contact information, you're certainly welcome to reach out to them. If there is not, you can reach out to Kimberly Mace.
M-A-C-E?
M-A-C-E. So all USAID email, most USAID email addresses are first letter, first initial, last name, except where, there's a case of a common name and somebody already has that and it's taken, but Kimberly should be kmace@usaid.gov.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Actually, so much of your information that you already provided answered a bunch of my other questions, so I'm sorry I don't have more to ask.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad. Let me make one clarification though for you. Is my last name is Ball. And I'm telling you that only because there is a Kimberly Bell in the agency who does entirely different work. So if you reach out to her,
I apologize.
You probably won't get what you need.
that was a misspeak. I did type it correctly. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Good enough. Again, we get so much of one another's emails. I'm trying to save her from that today.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jim. Good to see you. Next, Kimberly, you may recognize the following gentleman, Mr. John Graham, who used to come to our events a long time ago. John, welcome back.
Let me unmute. Ms. Ball, thank you, Mauricio. I do remember you well. You were the very nicest person telling us that we had submitted the very worst proposal to USAID. And I would say that we submitted it as prime. We are decided that we finally taken our licks so nicely that we're going to come back. I do have a question about OSDBU. We have fortunately, but unfortunately, blown through the ceiling for small businesses in most of our NAICS codes. OSDBU is Office of Small, blah, blah. Do you have the ability to talk to us who are no longer small?
Okay, so one thing I will say is that there was recently a change in a particular set of NAICS codes where the threshold went up from 16.5 to 21 million. So if you fall in that one, I think it was 541611.
1611.
Otherwise, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, is that you?
We blew through that one too.
Okay, so then what I will recommend is that, so I mentioned a lot about the work with USAID. That is actually managed by our industry liaison. His name is Matt Johnson. They will help anyone, no matter what, no matter what size or category of business or nonprofit that you are. So reach out to our Work with USAID colleagues. In fact, they're super easy to find because they're on Twitter and on Facebook and everywhere else. So you are, and on LinkedIn. So you can send a message to Matt Johnson on LinkedIn and ask your question or talk to him about what it is you need.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, John. Next, we have Stephen Espinal. Stephen, please unmute. Ask your question.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate this. And I also I just want to add, I just recently graduated. We just recently graduated from the VIP START program. I don't even think it's been a month yet. And we're getting back into back into the realm of things, focusing hard on government contracting. And I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We're looking at the forecast. We've met with the OSDBU with 5 contracts in hands that we got from the forecast. Separately, we went to a seminar hosted by HHS and spoke to more OSDBU people. And we have a few more meetings coming up with other OSDBUs and contracting officers. And just want to make sure that we're attacking this the right way and just doing the right thing. We're very, new to this. Like I said, we just graduated VIP start. But it's just very, it's helpful talking to OSDBU, but a lot of times when we're reaching out, we're talking to them, they're like, oh, reach out, send us an email, and all we get back is an email that says received, and then there's nothing more after that. So we just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing when speaking to the OSDBU.
Okay, apologies for that, folks, for going off camera briefly. So you're doing the right thing. So all of government, anybody who's successful in government contracting will tell you it takes persistence. And frankly, it means that you keep calling and you keep emailing until you find that person that's going to pick up the phone and answer your questions. And you keep responding to solicitations and RFIs and sources sought notices. And you look for that niche where you fit perfectly. What is it that you actually do, Keenan?
We're an IT services company. We provide, technical services, cybersecurity, data center services, technical writing, to private and public sector.
Okay, so IT has got to be the single hardest area to break into in the DC metro area. It's hard, frankly, just because there are so many of you.
Yeah.
Right. So are you on GSA schedule or anything like that?
No, we're not on GSA schedule.
Okay, so much of the IT purchases are made on GSA schedule, on NASA's SOUP contract, on that kind of thing. So what I would say for you, and obviously it's a business decision, it's not free to get on schedule, it costs money. So don't let me push you to do something that you're not financially prepared for. But if I were you, I would take a look at whether or not it's financially reasonable to get on schedule, because I think it's the best way if you're in IT. Awesome. It's a huge community. The government as a whole is pushing towards category management, which is sort of strategic sourcing or buying in economies of scale, right? And so one of the pieces of low-hanging fruit, heck, frankly, when Mauricio and I started working together, 12 years ago, 14 or 15 now, I guess. When he came in as the OSDBU director, one of the first places he looked for opportunity was IT, because it's such low-hanging fruit, because there's so many of you out there. But you have to look at how agencies are buying their IT work. And I would argue that most of them are doing it on schedule. Or using category management. So that's the piece of research that you need to be doing right now, is figuring out how are agencies buying that and then positioning yourself. Awesome. Now, I will say, again, I think for all of you, it's a challenging time, but it's also a very good time, because the Hill is very interested in what we're doing with the veteran-owned community. The one, aside from the fact that Mauricio asked me, it's one of the reasons I'm here today, is because we keep getting questions. I told you our own numbers are 33 million, which is a lot, but it's not. We have a 3% goal and we're at 0.6. We're not doing great. That's why we're coming out into the community. So it's a great time to be a vet, particularly a service disabled vet. But IT is just a lot of hard work. It's hard to get in. Once you get that first crack, though, I think you'll begin to see things open up for yourself. But you need to pick what agencies you're targeting, focus very heavily on them, and figure out how it is they're buying their IT services.
Okay, thank you so much. And you said you're holding a veterans only or service disabled veterans only webinar. Is that something that's going to be shared with us?
It is. Yeah. So it's not a webinar. It'll be a series of one-on-one meetings.
Okay.
That will happen, but we're specifically focusing, again, because our numbers are not good, on the veteran-owned small business community, and we'll do it after our next event, which I believe is June 3rd. That's actually with the American Legion. Following that, we'll publicize the link, but I will share it with Erin, who is our hostess today, and Mauricio, and they will share it with you all.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that question, Stephen. Next we have, I know it's Robert. It says Harold Hereford, but I know you, Robert. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mauricio. Yeah, that's a whole long story. Kimberly, thank you for your time today and your insights into USAID. First off, I want to ask, is World Bank part of USAID, or is it a separate entity?
It is separate.
Okay. Mauricio, maybe I can talk to you offline about our desire and what we would have to offer to World Bank.
Sure, we can do that. We can do
All
that,
right.
Robert. No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ms. Kimberly, we are an enterprise IT company as well. We do have some very unique and cost-saving solutions. We'll go ahead and get into your system there, and then
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, Harold.
Yes.
I am going to apologize, but I have missed your question. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys just frankly what's going on. I keep popping off screen because I got stuff going on with my kid. School sent them home early for some reason. I'm trying to track down where she is. I got a friend to go and get her. So you have my 100% focus, but I missed the first half of your question.
That's
so
okay.
I apologize, but would you start over?
Yeah, I was just saying we are an enterprise IT company.
Okay.
My personal background is 18 and a half years at Oracle. I am an Oracle certified solutions architect, but we don't pull on Oracle as our first tool out of our toolbox. We do have some very innovative and cost-saving IT solutions, both in the hardware and software area. And we will go ahead and fill out put ourselves in your USAID system. And then once we do that, then we'll reach out to the OSDBU office and see what we can possibly do to help you. Like the other company that mentioned, we do cyber training and awareness. In fact, we do that on a reoccurring basis now for New York City through the Chamber of Commerce of New York.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds like a good plan.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Next, let's go to Jerry Bell. Please unmute and ask your question. Oh, I think maybe we lost Jerry. Kenan, I see you had your hand raised.
Thanks again, Mauricio. Good afternoon again, Ms. Ball. Quick question here. We all have seen in the news where the U.S. is supporting the likes of, Ukraine and the effort and, the issues going on there. Lots of munitions and, military related support. However, there's other humanitarian support. Can you help us understand what role USAID is playing there and what opportunities there may be for SDVOSBs to participate?
Okay, so we have an existing mission in Ukraine. Yeah, obviously all of our American staff have left, and frankly, most of the Ukrainian staff have left as well, but primarily they're going to some of the missions in the surrounding countries. So USAID is still very much actively working to support the people of Ukraine. In terms of what we're doing there, though, I can't say, a lot of it is going to be, at this point, humanitarian relief, right? I think some of the other things will come a little bit later, but right now it's about the people and making sure people are fed and sheltered and healthy and that kind of thing. So in terms of what you do, Kenan, I don't know that there's an immediate opportunity, but
yeah, I'm sorry. My apologies. Yeah, so this is for medical distribution company, been in existence, SDVSB for the last 5 years, supporting the VA. So it would be for medical related, items. We partner with an ANC that was instrumental in Operation Warp Speed. So it would be in the medical side of the house.
Okay, what kind of medical instruments are we talking about?
Syringes, any kind of pharmaceuticals, any durable medical equipment, as well as some of the commodities, primarily those sorts of things.
Okay, so a couple of things. So in the immediate aftermath of an emergency, what the agency will typically do is use its existing partners just for expediency's sake. So that's what happens in the initial stages. So as things move on forward, then, you'll hear more about solicitations coming out to support, but immediately it's always going to be that. So it's a little challenging to get in if you're not already in. But what I will say is this, our Global Health Bureau has an incredibly enormous contract, a supply chain contract, where they do buy pharmaceuticals, mostly not domestically. And I'm going to say I'm not sure whether or not what you just said is a good fit, but I think it's absolutely worth you looking into. This will be our third iteration of our supply chain contract, and this one is somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'm not sure, but maybe $7 billion. So there's not necessarily prime opportunity for a small business in that sense, but I think there might be some subcontracting opportunities. So I think it's worth your while to pay attention to what we're doing, particularly as we host industry days, et cetera, around the suite of contracts that make up that supply chain. Okay, so that's our Global Health Bureau. So you definitely should be following what we're doing, just to see if there's opportunity. I'm going to be honest and say I'm not sure, but I think it's worthwhile for you to pay attention.
Beautiful, thank you.
And it's a good question about the Ukraine. I'll have to take a look. As far again, what I know is that in the immediate aftermath, as I said, we deal with existing vehicles. But whether or not there'll be anything new coming out, I think is worth paying attention to our business forecast, et cetera.
Awesome. Thank you.
Kimberly, I want to be respectful of your time. We are at 3:01. Do you have a couple of extra minutes? I see a number of hands raised, and I know we started late. So do you have a?
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we started late, so I've got a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Joshua, who I know, Joshua Bartlett. Joshua, are you with us? Okay, maybe we'll get him back. Let's go to David Jones. Please unmute.
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No?
Yes, we can hear you, but just barely. It would be helpful if you spoke up just a tiny bit.
Okay. I would like to know if you all hire contractors to conduct EEO investigations.
Yes.
You do?
Yes, we do. I can't say I know the details of how we do it, but I unfortunately have been contacted by one or two in my time, and they've all been contractors. So yes, yes, we do. So that's through our Office of Civil Rights.
Okay.
And again, if you said, I'm sorry?
I said that's the kind of contract we're interested in. Like the EEO investigations, harassment, workplace harassment, stuff like that.
Okay, well, as well as I do, that right now DEIA is really important with agencies. Right. So there's a lot going on sort of in that space. But yes, on a regular basis, we do hire contractors. The one thing I don't know is if it's contracted through a company or if we are actually hiring the individuals, like 1099, that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, it will have
so, but shoot us an email to the OSDBU 1 email address, and we'll get you an answer to whether or not that's something that we procure.
Okay.
And if it is, where we are in the cycle. Okay.
Right. I'll do that. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for that. Let's see. Next, we have Sylvester Bush. Please unmute.
Hello, again, Ms. Ball. The question is, I know the government is big on category management, strategic sourcing, and I'm all for, the efficiencies, economies of scale. But how do we balance that with doing business with small businesses? Because a lot of times when they do that, they're actually putting small businesses out of business. Like I know with the VA, they have this MVSP contract 1 and 2, where they initially started out with 7,000 products and then they expanded to the 40,000. And so where you're dealing with these maybe 10 companies that now you have to deal with them. So how is USA kind of balancing the fact that if your value statement says that you have to deal with small businesses, but on the other hand, you're looking at trying to be more efficient or follow the category management strategy?
So, that's an interesting question, and certainly one that we fight with or deal with. Let me say that more diplomatically all the time. Category management is important to the government. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. We try to remind folks that the small business program is statutory, and certainly we're getting a lot of interest around our program and what we're doing to achieve that. So one of the things I would say is that there are small businesses on the category management vehicles. So in terms of our category management share, we're doing okay, right? We're getting a decent percentage of small businesses that way. Having said that, though, I would think that that also leaves a lot of small businesses out. And frankly, those businesses won't be small for long if the government keeps going to the same set of contractors repeatedly. There really isn't much to say, though, about that. The agency has divergent goals all the time, and we're still expected to follow all of them, unfortunately. So we do our part to make sure, though, that when a requirement comes along, we're doing the market research first to see whether or not there's a small business before we decide on the vehicle. So the way the government should manage it is small business is statutory. We do our market research. We make decisions about whether or not it's appropriate for small business, and then we think about what small business vehicle might be out there, whether it's a category management vehicle or any other. So that is what I would say to you. I will be honest and say, I think, it is a fight. You can talk to any of the OSDBU directors and they'll tell you that small businesses are impacted by this. And frankly, as are large businesses who are the ones who are not fortunate enough to have these vehicles for whatever reason. For our community of contractors, it initially was just simply that many of the contracts were awarded from DoD are using that methodology, and our contractors don't necessarily have some of the same skill sets. They don't need them, so it's not necessarily important to us, but in order to get on one of these vehicles, you had to have a certain set of skills. So it was challenging, but what we are doing is looking for opportunities for small business and for veteran-owned small businesses that are outside of that, that sort of suite of contracts.
Okay, we have one more question, okay, as I know you have to run. Jonah Berry, please unmute and ask your question. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, I'm the lucky contestant. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate your time today to both of you. My name is Jonah Berry, and I run a company called Set Safe Group. We are a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, and we do emergency and risk management, which includes COVID compliance and medical compliance stuff. And I know that we're new. I just went through the START program with VIP and still feeling a little overwhelmed and lost in finding things in the federal landscape. But I do know that there's opportunity with USAID. And maybe if you had an idea of where I could focus my searches.
Okay, so how new a company are you?
Well, we officially on paper started in August of 21, so almost a year. And we've done fairly well in the civilian sector, working with entertainment business on film sets and whatnot. But our goal is to come into the federal landscape. And I just kind of get lost. When I get on there, I get lost, and then I'm overwhelmed, and then I'm out of there, to be quite honest.
Okay. So here is my advice. Pick a point of entry, right? Who are you most interested in working with? So that's who are you most interested in working with, and how easy are they to access, right? Some federal governments have more opportunities than others. Some are better at their small business goals than others. So I think it's important for you as a newbie to really be able to focus your efforts.
Copy.
So that requires you to do a little bit of homework. And you can space it out over time, right? No need to get overwhelmed all at once, but pick a couple, do some research on those agencies, look at what opportunities they have, attend their in-person events.
Copy.
And then I think for you, I would say join, right? Look at who are the businesses, the small businesses that operate with that agency that you're interested in targeting. For us, as I said, one of them is the Small Business Association for International Companies, right? Another is Professional Services Council, they deal with pretty much everybody. But they have a subcomponent that's CIDC, which is a council for international companies, which deals again with USAID and its international development market.
Right, right.
So I would pick your point, start small, right? You're going to get overwhelmed if you look at everybody all at the same time. And that's just not going to work. You don't have enough, I would assume, you don't have enough manpower or hours in the day or whatever to be able to research all of those organizations.
That's correct.
So
like
look at who is most closely aligned.
HHS.
I'm sorry?
I started with HHS and USAID, and just because of who I am and who we are in my humanitarian need, I really am drawn toward USA more than anything. So then I hear what you're saying. So focus there and then find out who's working within USAID, and then kind of keep dwindling that in until we find our sweet spot.
Right, absolutely. And you need to be really clear on who's buying what you sell, right? Because you could be very interested in USAID, spend a lot of time trying to do homework with us, attending our events, but if we don't buy what you sell, you've wasted your time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, so you need to be clear on that, right?
Copy. Perfect. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your help.
Okay, thank you and good luck. And congratulations on starting your company.
It's exciting.
I'm sure, and scary all at the same time.
Yeah, the greatest and most terrifying thing ever.
All right, well, thank you, Jonah. And Kimberly, thank you so much for taking the time to share with your insights and expertise today. Congratulations again on the position. We're going to do one last thing, and that is take a photo, if we can, of the attendees. If you can, if you're not on camera, I'll give you about 5 seconds to get on camera, and hopefully we can take a picture of those that are left. When I count to 3, and please say cheese. 1, 2, 3, cheese. All right. Thank you so much again, Kimberly, for sharing your time with us today. For everyone else, thank you for your questions and your participation. We're gonna, as a reminder, you're gonna receive an email including the slides and the video of today's webinar, as well as the contact information for the OSDBU office and Kimberly's team. Thanks again to everyone, and we hope to see you at the next Fireside Chat. Take care, everybody.
Mauricio,
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Mauricio, can you send the picture you just took with that package?
I will, sure.
We can, yep.
We can, excellent. If everyone says we can do it, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. See you soon.
Okay.
Oh, hey,
bye.
Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
You're on mute, Barbara.
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
Oh,
great information.
I think she left already. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mauricio, when would be a good time for us to chat?
Send me an email and I'll check my calendar and we'll compare schedules. I should have some time later in the week.
Okay, sweet. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. No problem, Robert. Good to see you. Take care.
Good to see you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.